Start.
Hi everyone, today I'll be discussing a mathematical fallacy. In fact, this is the greatest mathematical fallacy in the Western civilization, and this fallacy is 2 equals 1. So what happened was 20 years ago, a student at MIT was working with algebraic proofs, obviously at a higher complex level, and what he was able to derive that 2 is equal to 1. And this was a humongous controversy because obviously, 2 apples is evidently different from one apple. So if this was the case and this proof was to be valid, mathematics would not be existent today. So we wouldn't even have math. So basically what he started was, when you have any proof, you will always have given terms. So when something is given, he assumed that A is equal to B, which is valid. And one of the things about an equation is, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you always have to do to the other side as well, correspondingly. So what he did first was, he multiplied both sides by A. So A into A and then A into B. So what you can do when you have two multiplication, like two of the same variable multiply to each other, they become squared. And when working with equations, a multiplication sign is not required. The two terms can be put together and that will still be valid. And then what he decided to do at that point was he subtracted both b squared from both sides of the equation. So it became a squared minus b squared equals ab minus b squared. And one of the basic steps of mathematics is factoring. So you could factor this term, which is exactly what he did. And when he factored it, he did something called the difference of squares. So when you have a squared minus b squared, it becomes a plus b into a minus b. And on the other side, he had ab minus b squared. And he just factored out a b, so it became b into a minus b. And what he did at that point was he divided both sides by a minus b, since this is common, and so he was able to get a plus b is equal to b. So, however, he started with an assumption that a is equal to b, and when you have that, you can substitute an a for the b because they're both equal. If a is 3 million, b will be 3 million. So at that's exactly what he did, and then it became b plus b is equal to b. So what then happened was, when you add b plus b, you get 2b. So 2b is equal to b. So then what he did was he just divided both sides by b, and he got 2 is equal to 1. So this was a humongous debate because all the steps are algebraically valid, and so actually this was a whole worldwide controversy. And what ended up happening was, there was one small corruption with this whole thing. And what happened was, when we said that a plus b into a minus b equals b into a minus b, we divide both sides by a minus b. So however, we started with the step that a is equal to b. So if that's the case, if you take the b to the other side, it becomes a minus b is equal to 0. So what then happens is, you're dividing a term by 0. So that makes it invalid. And there's a 0 on this side too, so you're dividing 0 by 0, which is also indeterminate form. Because if you take a number and divide it by 0, it's infinity. And if you take any number by itself, 0 over 0, it's 1. Or if you divide any number from 0, 0 by any number will be 0. So it's an indeterminate form. And one of the best parts of this entire controversy was that this whole thing was solved by a French accountant. And so it took a French accountant to disprove a mathematics student from MIT. So this was the great controversy of 2 is equal to 1. And so basically this is a kind of a neat trick to show to your friends or show to your teacher, to show that you can prove 2 is equal to 1. Although this is invalid, it's kind of hard to recognize that there's a corruption in the steps, because all the steps seems algebraically valid. However, it's just the indeterminate form, so that one small thing destroyed this entire proof. And as we know today, we're still studying math every day. This was pretty close, however, this was a fallacy. So thank you.